for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was just so it's just a special time for me as well, because I remember that I'd watched it a few times back in '97, and then when I came back to it in '98, man, it was just so different. It just drew me in from the start. But I think, like, had I started trying to watch it like the year previous, I would have found it a little bit harder to get so deeply invested into it.
Yeah. As we see now, a bit of ganging up, and now he's just hit his own guy.
Classic.
Very classic. And I'm guessing that we probably may not see the number one fan at this one either. I think he might have... I'm not sure if I remember him too much around this sort of eras in the Attitude. He was around, but I'm not sure as often. We'll keep a lookout for him. I'm sure you guys, the listeners, will as well, that have followed our retrospective so far. We always give mention to this guy who's always there in the crowd. I've always known him as the number one fan, because he always gives that number one little finger to say he is. Oh God, very late there from Funaki coming down on that one. Headbangers, I mean, they won the belts, didn't they? I believe at some point. I'm guessing. I think they did.
I do think so, actually. Yeah, their title reign's not exactly one that's probably going to go down in the history books, but I'm sure they did.
Oh. Yeah, Takumi Chinuku is actually a lot better than I remember him being. Quite intense, quite decent, to be honest. But he was one of these guys that unfortunately Vince had glass ceiling on him, I'm pretty sure, and he could only go so high because they weren't going to allow Takumi Chinuku to do, beat some of the more established wrestlers, which is a shame, because if you look at him there, Matt, he actually looked pretty decent at this time. Like they could have, like, if he was around today, he would have stood much more of a chance, but in this era,
he was definitely an underutilised talent at the time.
What a move. Slamming him on top. I like that finisher though from him. Yeah, so first match of the night, so the Headbangers and Takumi Chinuku go over then, as we now look at Jerry Lawler's very red jacket that he's got going on in the King attire.
Yeah, kind of as loud as the t-shirts he wears these days.
Yeah, back then no t-shirts, very much chest, all bare chest there we see. As we get a shot of the King of the Ring entrance. And now what's this we got coming out here? Hang on. I think this can only mean one thing, Matt. Yep, it's definitely Attitude time, isn't it? Sable's coming out. It's almost like Vince has gone, right, it's time for you to get out there.
And yeah, this would be very popular at the time, I imagine, as well.
Very, very popular. Especially, I mean, being around, 13, 14 years old as well. Sable at this time. And of course, Sable nowadays, most people will know she is the wife of the Beast in Carnage, Brock Lesnar. So, how things work out, eh? You don't realise. But Sable at this point now, she would have been wrestling, wouldn't she, at this point, Matt? Because she started to wrestle, didn't she?
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was in 98 or 99.
And she wasn't too bad actually either. She was actually quite good. I mean, she could definitely even pull off the powerbomb, obviously. So that was quite a good move for her at the time. Yeah,
I think she brought the women's title back, I believe. Like, before then, we hadn't had a women's belt for a while. So I think she was the one that sort of started that trend. And then you had about like one other woman in there a month or something, because there just wasn't many around at the time. And now, oh well, surprise, surprise, Vince McMahon's walking out. Just as we're talking about Vince, Mr. Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe, and this would be the sort of pre-corporation, Matt. This would be like almost getting before they started to add wrestlers to this thing. But this is the original authority, I guess. For those modern fans of today, this was the original outfit. As we see Mr. McMahon, It was not very... And there he is, Matt. I just saw him. The number one fan.
Oh, he's there still. I was wondering if he was still going to keep going at this point.
There he is.
Kind of the time, right? Well, I kind of remember him sort of phasing out slowly.
Yeah. I've got to be honest with you. I cannot for the life of me get my subtitles to work. So if you know anything that's going on here, Matt, you'll have to keep me posted because I have no clue what this is all about at the moment whilst I'm trying to sort this out.
Now, this. Oh, he didn't take kindly to being told what to do, I guess.
I hope Brock doesn't see that nowadays. Well, it didn't work out well for her, did it? So, just as I thought that the number one fan would be cooling off as being a fan, there he was chanting at Mr. McMahon himself as he came in.
Everyone desperate to touch Sable, I see as she walks out.
Yeah. And Gerald Briscoe was always the very much up Mr. McMahon's butthole. As I see the number one fan again, always seems to get in the shot. Seems to be very good at that, at managing to get in that shot. They should make, you know what they should do with that guy? They should have made a, or they could do it with the classic wrestling figures. They should make the number one fan. I'm going to put a petition together, I think, and we'll get a figure made up of that guy in the vest top. Can be like a little thing on the back where you can push a button and he'll automatically go to that number one spot with his hand.
I wonder where he is now. I wonder if he's still a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I you know, like I said, I'm surprised in this day and age with the way WWE have got so much TV to fill up. Like he's not been ever reached out because, like, imagine him on something like Edge and Christian show or something. You know,
yeah, I just
that
thinking
kind of
that
thing.
he'd be perfect for that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that guy definitely had dedication. I mean, he wasn't exactly at the back rows of these arenas. He was always somewhere where he's going to get seen. So must have been a very. I mean, he must have almost like driven around to all these venues at one time during the early '90s, at least. But yeah, this is the Mr. McMahon. Now this would be, of course, we're up to this point. We're used to seeing Mr. McMahon. Those fans really getting into the DX thing there. We were used to seeing Mr. McMahon, the commentator, but now we'd hit a point, Matt, where Mr. McMahon was known pretty much as an arsehole. That's what the chant was back then. I remember that one well. Arsehole, arsehole. It's just like it was just a done thing back then, and that's what he was known as because he'd done the whole screw job with Brett, and then he kind of just incorporated that character and took the ball and ran with it. So here we're seeing Vince McMahon have a bit of fun here, getting a lot of heat from the crowd, no doubt about that. But he loves all that, you can tell. The way he's manipulating this crowd a bit, you know, they're all buying into it, aren't they?
Just telling everyone their disappointment to their parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really held back. Didn't hold back, should I say? In them days when he was doing that, like he didn't. There was no real limits to how far he'd go with that stuff when he was doing these kind of things. And so already we're seeing like the sort of a completely different start when you think about like King of the Rings gone by, Matt. Like this sort of thing is very alien to the ones we'd obviously seen in the past. For a while.
Straight away from the beginning of this, you're getting the feeling this is heavily story driven even on the pay-per-view.
Yeah. See, I have to say I don't remember any of this up until this point, so shows where I am. I think the other interesting thing with this is the where the fans were kept behind those, like it was like they're always those black sort of I don't know what you'd call them, but the guardrail stuff, like they always had that look, didn't they, before they brought in the other stuff. It always looked kind of like an ECW kind of thing for a while. I think that's the sort of trend they were going for.
And I think he's just talking now about like how Austin's going to lose tonight and that people shouldn't be disappointed because they're also a disappointment.
Yeah, how times have changed, though. But this is what we were
Yeah.
talking about when we were doing our more, in the now recent podcasts, and we were talking, especially earlier in the year of 2016, when we certainly put, a lot of what was going on at that Royal Rumble to where the sort of stuff that was happening back in the Attitude Era, how they'd kind of tried to redo a few things that was very much still at the forefront of my memory. And almost it was Triple H playing that character. But, it's very hard to duplicate without the right ingredients. It's very, very tough. But, the two, they were like two sort of stooges, weren't they? Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. Like, they were always kind of like up Mr. McMahon's butt. Whatever he said.
They called them, didn't they, the two stooges in there? Stooges or whatever.
Yeah, I even believe they had a time of like coming out together with like Hulk Hogan's music, Real American, a few times to do some ridiculous matches when they got dressed up. Which is quite fun.
Here we go with the King of the Ring table. Oh yeah, they've already got people advanced through, haven't they?
Yeah, so well, there we go then. So there are a lot, by all accounts, on this one. So yeah. And of course, so it looks like we are, and this, I can't believe just before that came up that they showed the replay of when Sable and Pat Patterson from earlier on. That was hilarious. Only in the Attitude Era would that happen. Certainly something you wouldn't get today, in the Merit anyway.
They were really into their pyros at this time. I see Jeff Jarrett's got his own one going here as well. And
yeah, Jeff Jarrett off Double J, as he was then, and
great ring attire as usual.
Yeah, I mean, I hated that ring attire. Here we go, JJ, right up in the.
Never really understood. It's like flat braces, but it's three of them.
Yeah, I never got that. I never really understood. I really hated the fact that, especially when you look back on it, you realise how good Jeff Jarrett was, but yet he was kind of like, it was not really treated that well with the characters he was given. Like, the only time I felt he was in the right spot was when he was paired with Owen Hart and the Deborah thing. I thought that was good. But, yeah, I don't know, this stuff. And there you go, there's the famous Jeff Jarrett walk that he used to do once he was in the ring. And that is a very, very interesting attire that he does have in general, with the glasses and everything. So let's see who his opponent is then on this one. And of course, there's Howard Finkel. There he is as usual.
Cool. Doesn't Shamrock just look ripped here as well?
Well, very ripped, as I see him coming down now. And he looks big there as well. He doesn't look just ripped, but he looks big.
Bigger than I remembered.
Yeah, I mean, did we see? No, we wouldn't have seen him in '97, would we? Because he'd only done the referee stint up until that point, and I think he debuted around like a couple of months after that. So Ken Shamrock, who was very, I guess, popular at this point, Matt, because he was sort of like the loose cannon. You just didn't know what he was going to do, and that's how they got past him. But man, he's self pretty pacey here as well.
Yeah, he is.
He looks good. I mean, he looks really good. He looks like a top star from when you're watching him here. I've got to be honest with you.
Actually, yeah, but if I was coming into this, watching this for the first time, I would straight away assume like, hey, this dude looks intense,
Yeah, really intense.
And he's got the look for it to be like a top tier wrestler as well.
Yeah, I always felt that Shamrock was very much underlooked when it came to like his transition from, the Ultimate Fighting to get into this. Like, I think he took to this very, very well, the whole wrestling game, and I don't think people give him enough credit, because I know that a lot of people say Kurt Angle took to it really, really fast, but Ken Shamrock is another one of those guys who also took to it really fast and got hold of what he was doing really fast. So he was definitely overlooked in that area when you consider from where he came from, that sort of legit fighting.
Yeah.
As we see Jeff Jarrett